So when you ask someone for advice on how to lose weight, chances are they'll fall into one of two categories. Either they'll tell you that losing weight is all a matter of calories. Count the calories coming in, count the calories going out, and make sure you remain in a deficit. They say you can't argue with maths. Then you get the people that will say it's more to do with your hormones. It's all about being in good shape. It's about, keto or insulin sensitivity, or it's about intermittent fasting, and that this can help you to get better results than simply counting your calories, which can be a bit soul crushing. As usual, I think the correct answer lies somewhere in the middle of these two things. I do find it's a little bit unhelpful when people tell you that all you need to know to lose weight is to count your calories, because some people can be so stubborn with that when someone says to them, look, I have been counting my calories, I'm trying really hard, I'm dieting lots, and I'm not losing weight. They have a tendency to just say, well, you're lying, you're not counting your calories enough, or you're cheating, or you haven't thought of something, when actually, I've witnessed firsthand people who have counted their calories and they're still not losing the weight. Likewise, people who are eating tons and tons of protein, tons of calories, and they're still not building the muscle. There is a little bit more to it than that. But then it's pretty hard to argue with maths. If you're burning more calories than you're eating, that means your body needs to find that fuel from somewhere, so it's going to burn your fat store. So how can it possibly be that this doesn't work for some people sometimes? So normally if you wanted to lose weight by counting calories, you'd start by working out your AMR, that's your active metabolic rate. And this is your BMR, basal metabolic rate, plus activity. So the basal metabolic rate is how many calories you burn in order to go about your business, in order to walk, in order to blink, in order to breathe, in order to just be alive. Before you exercise, this is the number of calories your body needs just to maintain your systems, in order for your food to digest, in order for you to sleep, in order for you to think. So that all takes energy. So once you've calculated that, and then you add on top of that how much exercise you do in a day, then you've got a good number, a rough estimate of how many calories you're burning each day. But it really is just that, it's an estimate, and for some people it's going to be way off, as we're about to see. The best way to illustrate this is to go through it and see what's wrong with it. So let's calculate our BMR and our AMR. So men, you're going to start with the number 66 because who knows, and then you're going to plus your weight in pounds times 6.23. Then you're going to plus your height in inches times 12.7, and then you're going to subtract from that your age in years by 6 times 8. Women, you're going to start with 655, then you're going to add your weight in pounds times 4.35, then you're going to add your height in inches times 4.7, and from that you're going to subtract your age in years by 4.7. Okay, so that's our basal metabolic rate, that's how many calories we burn just to stay upright, and then on top of that you're going to add your activity, and that's just going to be in multiplication using an arbitrary number based off of roughly how active you are on a typical day. So 1.2 is for people who are very inactive, people who just hang around the house, people who work from home, people who work sitting down, who drive to work, and then 1.9 is going to be for people who are highly active, people who maybe are physical laborers, people who move boxes for a living, people who are up on their feet all day at work, maybe they teach cycling or something. So take your number, times it by that, that's your active metabolic rate, that's roughly how many calories you burn in a given day on a typical day. Then on top of that, you're just going to add any activity you do that's extra, like exercise. You'll probably track the number of calories you burn using a fitness tracker, add that onto that, and that's how many calories you burned that day. So what's the problem with this? It all sounds very scientific. How could it possibly go wrong? Well, first of all, that AMR is based off your body height and your weight and your gender, but it has no indication of your muscle mass. And as we all know, muscle is far more metabolically active than fat. So if you're very muscular, then you're going to burn calories more quickly than if you're very overweight. And you can get around this by calculating your lean body mass, which is the amount of weight you have without fat, and then doing an AMR calculation based off of that. And I'll leave a link in the description down below to an article on my website, The Bioneer, where you'll be able to find those calculations with tons more to find out more about a more accurate figure of how many calories you might be burning in a given day. Problem is that a lot of fitness trackers and a lot of apps, a lot of diet apps, they don't ask for your body fat percentage, they don't have your lean body mass, so that AMR or BMR is calculated based off of just your height and your weight. So it could be completely off, because if you're someone who's 100 pounds and you're just fat, or you're 100 pounds and you're just pure muscle, you're going to burn very different numbers of calories. So another problem is it's really hard to measure your activity level. So you might be highly active during the week but very sedentary during the weekend, or vice versa. We might just have a week where you're not very active because you've twisted your ankle, and that can skew your results, and your AMR and your BMR isn't going to change to reflect that. And likewise, you might simply have misrated yourself because Well, a lot of people think that the activity levels include the exercise they're doing on top, but it doesn't, because if you're measuring your activity levels with your fitness tracker, then you shouldn't also be counting those calories again by saying you're an active person. So you should really only be looking at the number of calories you burn by walking during the day and by being active generally. Going to the gym for half an hour, even if it's an intense session, isn't going to fix it. So you need to be more active throughout the day. And so this is something to think about when you're measuring your activity levels. And actually fitness trackers have something of a problem with this, because a lot of the time when they measure your calorie burn during an exercise, they forget to measure your BMR on top of that. In other words, they forget to measure how many calories you would have burned anyways during that hour and then subtract that from the number. So again, you'd think that they'd be smarter than that, but a lot of them aren't, and so your numbers again might be skewed. You might think that you're being really strict and maintaining that deficit, but actually that deficit could be a lot smaller because the numbers aren't quite adding up right. And another thing to think about is all the other sources of calories that you might not have considered when you were logging your calorie intake. So that includes things like soda drinks, Coca-Cola and lemonade. These add tons of calories to our diets, and a lot of people don't count them, they just count their meals. Likewise, sugary coffees and things, or full-fat milk. These things, milk on your cereal, these things add a ton of calories, and if you're only logging the food items you're eating and you're forgetting about those things, the oil that you add to your cooking, the seasoning, if you're forgetting those things, then your numbers again going to be skewed. But even with that all taken into account, there's still big problems inherent in the whole concept of an AMR and a BMR, because ultimately these numbers allow no individual differences. They are a completely set number, set in stone. Then they don't take into account how our metabolisms differ. And this is where some people will say, you're just making excuses. You're just saying, you know, I can't lose weight because of my metabolism, when actually you're just lazy. And no, these people, if that's your view, then you either lack sympathy and empathy, or you just haven't encountered someone who genuinely struggles to lose weight or who genuinely struggles to build muscle, because there are huge differences with our metabolism which just aren't shown in an AMR or a BMR. Consider this, for instance. If you were to take steroids right now, your AMR and your BMR would remain the exact same. However, you'd burn a lot more fat and build a lot more muscle thanks to all that extra testosterone. So that's proof that the AMR and the BMR doesn't take everything into account. Or consider women who start oral contraceptive pills and they start to gain or lose weight rapidly because they've altered their hormone balance. Or think about someone with hypothyroidism. That means that they don't produce the same thyroid hormones. They gain weight, they find it much harder to lose weight, they have much lower energy. Likewise, someone with hyperthyroidism is going to lose a lot of weight and be bouncing off the walls. Then you have things like insulin sensitivity, which can vary from person to person, diabetes. So someone with diabetes, again, their AMR and their BMR is going to be the same as someone without diabetes, even though the way that they lose and gain weight is going to be drastically different. And I'm not saying that you might have hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. I'm not saying that you are taking steroids, but the point is you shouldn't think of these things as binary. So you're not someone who has hypothyroidism or doesn't have it. You have thyroid hormones, and for each of us we have different quantities and different strengths of these hormones. Likewise, different people have different amounts of testosterone, different people have different amounts of estrogen, or their body responds to it differently. So think of it more like a spectrum. You're somewhere on that spectrum. You might be very close to being clinically diagnosed with hypothyroidism. With diabetes, you might be very close to pre-diabetes, but not realize it. You could be perfectly healthy, but you're just someone who, because of that hormone difference, finds it harder or easier to build muscle or to lose weight, etc. And this isn't going to be shown in your AMR or your BMR. So it's not that it's not scientific. It's not that, you know, counting the numbers doesn't work. The problem is with counting the numbers, because if you're someone who has more testosterone or who has more of the right thyroid hormones, you're going to burn more calories, but your AMR won't tell you that, and vice versa. Another example is your microbiome, the gut flora that lives inside your gut. So bacteria we often think of as being bad for us, as being germs, as being viruses, but actually a lot of bacteria is good for us. We have tons of bacteria living in our stomachs, living in our bowels, that perform a whole host of jobs inside our bodies. They break down our food, they release neurotransmitters, they help to fortify our immune system. And when this gut flora gets imbalanced, when you have the wrong amounts or kinds of bacteria, or you don't have enough, then you lose some of those functions, and that's another reason you might lose or gain weight. I watched a video recently by What I've Learned. I've mentioned that channel a couple of times, really enjoying it at the moment, talking about the microbiome and talking about how one woman who had a fecal transplant, which is disgusting. It means that you're transplanting someone else's poo into you in order to inherit their microbiome. They did this in order to support her immune system, I believe, but as a result, she gained weight. She didn't change anything else about her diet, but she gained a ton of weight because she basically inherited the microbiome of someone who was overweight, and this made it hard for her to remain in shape herself. So that's another factor that you might not have considered, something as simple as supporting your gut flora. When you take antibiotics, it kills off these bacteria and you might find yourself feeling ill. That could lead to weight gain.
So when we actually look at the biome of people who are overweight or people who have diabetes, they tend to have a lot more of this Firmicutes family.
You can support your microbiome, you can support your gut flora by using yogurts, by using probiotic foods, by using things like kefir. So that's something to look into, and it's certainly something I'm going to look into more on this channel because your gut flora also has a big impact on your psychology and your mental performance. So that's right up my alley. And of course, I haven't even addressed the alleged differences in the ways that our body responds to different types of food. There's the thermic effect, the notion that certain foods require calories just to digest more so than others. There's the notion that protein is less readily stored as fat. There's the idea that complex carbs and fats release their energy more slowly and thereby are less likely to spike our blood sugar and to trigger an insulin response, causing us to store fat when we're not currently active and don't currently need the energy. So all these things might also play a role, and that explains why some people have success with things like the slow carb diet, or again going to a more fat-based diet rather than a carb-based diet. But again, we're all different, and what works for you might be different from someone else. So if you've tried one diet and it doesn't work, rather than being dogmatic and thinking that's the only way, try one of the others. Even if it doesn't work for the reason that you think it should work, you might find that your body responds well to it. All this anecdotal evidence doesn't come from nowhere. And believe it or not, as crazy as it might sound, your personality even and your mood can also have a big impact on the number of calories you burn, because if you're somebody who is very anxious, very overstressed at the moment, very overworked, you're going to produce a lot of cortisol. Cortisol, as we know, signals hunger, it makes you more hungry. It also encourages your body to store fat, and in particular visceral fat, which is the really unhealthy kind. Then on the other hand, if you're someone who's very relaxed, very easygoing, you might produce less myostatin because cortisol and myostatin correlate with each other. Myostatin is a molecule that signals the breakdown of muscle, so somebody who's more relaxed and easygoing might in fact, or certainly less stressed at work, might in fact find it easier to build more muscle, to remain more anabolic. And once again, I'm not saying that this is a bigger factor than the calories you eat. I'm not saying that AMR and BMR is useless. I'm just saying that all these things should be taken into account when you're looking at losing or gaining weight. I often recommend that people who are trying to gain muscle live like lions, I say. They shouldn't just sleep more, train more, and eat more. They should relax more. They should be more laid back. They should try and reduce their stress. And you're going to stay more anabolic. You're going to build more muscle.
I'm here now for 6 days and nobody invited me for breakfast. This morning they say, come for breakfast with us, Arnold. Come, have a nice breakfast.
And of course, your sleep has a massive impact on how many calories you can burn. It's been proven time and time again that sleeping better helps you to burn more calories, and not getting enough sleep leads to weight gain and low energy, of course, which is going to impact on the quality of your workouts. And again, this isn't factored into an AMR or BMR. It's not factored into counting your calories. So what should you do? How should you lose weight or gain weight if you're struggling to? Like I say, start by calculating your calories, start by tracking them, start with by calculating macros, but then if it's not working for you right away, and on top of it anyways, look at other factors, look at all the factors that contribute to your weight loss or your weight gain. Look at things like your sleep, look at how active you are during the day, look at if you're overstressed, look at perhaps supplements or mineral deficits. And then there are nutrient deficiencies, so if you're not getting enough of a certain nutrient, you're going to find it harder to burn fat or to build muscle, because either that nutrient is involved in mobilizing fat cells or it's involved in the creation of an important hormone or neurotransmitter. So again, that's something where you can try to cut calories and to lose weight that way, but actually maybe you just needed more magnesium. Could be that simple. And seeing as we've discussed that muscle is more metabolically active than fat and helps you to burn more fat even at rest, it follows that another way you can help yourself to burn more calories is to build more muscle. This is a big mistake that a lot of people make. They think the best way to get slim is just to do loads and loads of cardio, when in fact doing some form of resistance training can actually be even more effective, because when you're doing this, not only are you burning calories by using the muscles and exerting yourself, but you then encourage further fat burning throughout the day because you've got more muscle mass for your body to maintain. And one of the best things you can do is to train your legs. If you're skipping legs day, then you're skipping some of the biggest muscles in your body, and you could be burning many more calories by just bulking up the legs. And I'm not saying that it will be that simple for you. I'm not saying that any of these things are necessarily more important than an AMR and a BMR. All I'm saying is that there's so many different factors. You shouldn't just look at it as a black and white thing. And as well as considering your calories to begin with, I'd also highly recommend considering your lifestyle in general. Could you be sleeping better? Are you getting all of your important nutrients? Are you getting all of your amino acids? Are there supplements that you haven't tried? Are you active during the day? Are you getting enough sunlight? Are you highly stressed at work? All these things could have a big impact on you. Should you check with your doctor to find out whether you might be insulin resistant or whether you might have polycystic ovaries? Could it be medication you're on? All these things, consider all these things because they do play a role a lot of the time. So I hope you found this video useful and interesting, guys. If you did, then please leave a like, please share it around, please comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you completely disagree with me? Do you think it's just a matter of counting calories? Or do you think there are lots of other factors involved as well? Are there any other big factors that I've missed that you think I should have addressed? If you'd like to continue this discussion further, then I recommend checking out the link in the description down below. Go to the Pioneer. I've just added a forum where we can talk about this and many other topics, whether it's nootropics, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's fitness, whether it's parkour, martial arts, or just Dragon Ball Z. Because I've been loving the discussions we've had down below. I love the fact that you guys talk to each other as well. And I thought, why not create a place where you can properly discuss? So you can create a account and you can sign up and we'll talk about all those things. If you have any questions about fitness or brain training or nootropics or any suggestions for topics you'd like me to post, of course I'll still answer you down below there as well, but that's another forum, another place for us to discuss those things. So yeah, check it out if you're interested. Thanks a ton for watching. Stay tuned for stuff like bodybuilding, fitness, nootropics, technology, working online, self-development, brain training, martial arts, parkour, fitness. If that all sounds good, then thanks a ton for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.